Hello, welcome to this next episode of this experimental podcast series. I have previously named it Practice Speech, but think I'm actually going to rename it into Practice Life or Practice Living, perhaps, because that's sort of more what it is. This is podcast where I just, without script or anything, just ramble away about whatever arises each day. And I'm hoping that I'm going to come up with some interesting things, but it also could just be kind of like a test and see where it goes. So the goal is to reach 100 of those videos. And this is number 5, I think. So my name is Anicka. And today I thought I should talk a little bit about relationships and what's important in relationships. And the issue came up because a friend of mine who thought that I had been alone, as she saw it, a little too long, thought I should go on a dating site and see what happens. Hallelujah. So that I did, and I've had some fun with that for the last week or so. And so far, I've got some very keen love interests from a bot from South Korea. I have gotten a marriage proposal from a depressed Nigerian prince, and I got into contact with a very nice serial adulterer from Florida. And that's about it. Um, so, although it was fun, I don't think it's gonna um, evolve into something more substantial, really. But we'll see. I'm keeping it up. But anyway, the discussions with the serial adulterer made me think a little bit about what's important for me in a relationship, because it didn't come up right from the start, but after a few discussions, it surfaced that he had been married and divorced 4 times. And on top of that, he had 2 kids with 2 separate women. And the 2 women that he had kids with were not among the 4 that he had actually married. So I'm not sure. You can do the math on that. But yeah, I ended up with that was a lot of relationships, basically. And a lot of commitments that suddenly went the other way. And so, even though he's a really nice guy and fun to talk to and all that, I don't think that I'm inclined to aim for becoming number 5 in the row. Um, and what made me change my mind was the concept of trust, I think. And that is kind of hard to restore maybe after his history like that. But because I do like the guy. So, and there is a discrepancy between a person you trust and a person you like. And it got me thinking that is it possible to have a person that you don't trust and love them? Or vice versa? Is it possible to trust a person that you don't love? And a couple of years back, I volunteered for an organization that used to rehome animals for people who wanted to leave abusive relationships and go into hiding for a while, and they couldn't bring their animals, so we would rehome the animals for them. And I was there for quite a while. I was responsible for the halfway homes, and I got to work with lots of women who worked closely with social services who were helping these families who wanted to leave those abusive relationships. So I got a little bit of kind of a sideway education into this concept of domestic violence and all that. And what was interesting in that many of these women, often who eventually wanted to leave, they had stayed in those relationships for a very long time, and they actually loved the guy, despite the fact that they very often had to take their duvet and pillow and go into the bathroom to sleep every night just so that they could lock the door around them. And that is a hallmark example of a relationship where you love someone but you can't trust them. And I was actually myself very close to being in a similar relationship or two a while back, and the issue come up around weapons and where to store them and so on. And some of the things that this person said made me lose trust in them instantly. And that the second that happened, I left the relationship, despite how many feelings I had for this individual. And I just thought that that was weird that these women stayed in those relationships for so long, even though they knew they couldn't trust the guy not to hurt them. They would still stay. And in a way, I can understand that they still loved them. Um, but to stick around when there is no trust, that one does not resonate with me. But on the other hand, I can sometimes in like business or in other types of relationships maybe run into a person that I feel has a certain integrity. So I can trust them, but I don't necessarily like them, and specifically not in a kind of intimate relationship kind of way. But I can see that since I do trust them, it would be possible to build up some kind of, yeah, like them or love them after a while maybe. But I think that the odd thing is that if the trust is lacking, that is where the shit hits the fan, as far as I'm concerned. Because uh, if you are in a long-term relationship with someone, then it's kind of natural that what you think about that person can go up and down. And sometimes maybe you love them, sometimes you don't. If you have someone who snores every night and burns down the house while they're trying to make breakfast and whatever, you're not going to like that a lot. But you might still trust them, provided they didn't burn down the house on purpose, right? And as long as the trust is there, I think that you can always build the feelings. And that is a decision you make. But once the trust is broken, that is really, really hard to come back from that.